Hey, you're now listening or watching the Halos in the Infield podcast with your hosts Todd Fox and Fernando the Lone Star Halo, brought to you in part by Noble L Works, just outside of Anaheim Stadium and the Pond, or the Honda Center, where you can get drink specials just by mentioning Halos in the Infield. Also brought to you in part by 714 Tickets. 714 Tickets is a place to go to get 10% off of any ticket purchase just by also mentioning HITI, Halos in the Infield. Now enjoy the show. Hey, welcome into another episode of Halos in the Infield, the off-season edition, as the only big news has been not the LA team down in Anaheim, but the LA team up the 5. Also, we'll touch a little bit more on that, and we'll get the reactions of yours truly and also Fernando, as we've done separate videos on the reaction about what happened, but we're going to get our thoughts and see if they align together. And then we're also going to talk about the Angels offseason and then the retirement of one Andrelton Simmons, a fan favorite here in Anaheim. So with that being said, I'm Todd Fox, and the other host of the show is
the Lone Star Halo. Hello, everybody. It's been a while. We're gonna start getting better back into the groove. We promise.
Absolutely. There's going to be weekly shows, and if you haven't seen his background, or if you're looking at it now for the first time, check out on X on Halos in the Infield. He goes through a walkthrough of how it looks when it's completely red, and it is he's painting the town red there in the Lone Star State. So it looks really nice, his little man cave he's got going on.
Thank you. Yeah, this is I really like it. There's a lot of new additions that I didn't have before. So
Absolutely. And I'm telling you, that's we're true Angel fans. We do love the team. It's just been hard. As you know, if you're a hardcore Angel fan, it has been hard to follow. So with that being said, let's jump into it, shall we? What was, obviously I've seen your video, you've seen mine. What are your takeaways? Do our thoughts align, and do you have anything like you would want to bring up that you didn't bring up in the video, or is there something you disagree with what I said, or vice versa?
no, I mean, when I made the video, we still didn't fully know the extent of what the Ohtani contract was going to bring. We didn't know fully about the deferrals. We didn't know that they were going to get Glass now. We didn't know that they were going to get Yamamoto, and it's getting worse and worse. And let me just call out another page by saying Yamamoto and Ohtani are not twins. Just in case they're going to say that again.
And by the way, since you brought that racist up, it's funny to see how he made a video or a little I guess an X or some sort of like short, and it was about him, Ohtani leaving and him being sad, and then wanting to, like, they offered him to be a Dodger fan. He just shook it off, and that was the end of the thing. Very cheesy, but that thing went viral. It got like 40,000 views, and
Yeah, it's a weird place.
yeah, it is a weird place. But the comments were worth it, though, if you know what I mean.
That's fair. Yeah, I did not look at the video. I haven't had the privilege, but yeah, I probably didn't miss out much. But anyway. Yamamoto was the most coveted player coming out of Japan this year. You had Ohtani, the most coveted free agent in baseball, probably ever. I don't think that's much of an understatement. Let's be honest. And then you have Tyler Glasnow, who was probably one of the best names available on the trade market in terms of a pitcher. The best name available via trade was probably Juan Soto. But, in terms of a pitcher, I don't think Glasnow's a stretch. Corbin Burns might be the other name.
Yeah,
so maybe you can make the argument that it was him. But the fact that they not only traded for Glasnow, but then went ahead and re-signed him just kind of adds more fuel to the fire. I mean, the team up north has now spent over $1 billion between those three guys alone. Hey, it's going to be real sweet when they choke in the playoffs. That's all I can say. Realistically, I mean, I've kind of come to terms with it, And by the way, in case you don't know, we're talking about Ohtani going to the Dodgers because, there's a way you could avoid that news up to this point, right?
I think it's one of those things where it's overcompensation. I mean, the Dodgers are the guy that has raised his truck, has put the Longhorns on the hood, has put the balls dangling from the back of the bed, and just
Yo,
sprayed.
global display.
Yeah, there you go. In the new speaker system, I mean, they are trying to go all out, and they're doing everything possible. But to me, when you break it down, and I think we did on each video about the pitchers coming off of Tommy John, and the some of the players who didn't perform last year. They put together. I mean, people forget they put together an all-star cast last year too. Maybe not to this aspect, but those guys all went belly up in the playoffs or down the stretch. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that, yeah, they could look great during the regular season like they do every year. But when it matters, it's like, no, wake me up when September ends is that stupid song by Green Day, because that's when you got to see them perform. And even though, like you said, they got Glass now, Corbin Burns would have been a guy that scared me because he's never really been hurt. Glass now's got a history of injury. So is he really insurance while Otani's out? Who knows? So there are kinks in that armor that doesn't appear to be like this rock solid team. The only problem is, Fernando, the way the Dodgers went about free agency so early and so impactful, it's kind of stunt the growth of this year's offseason because other teams haven't made moves, whereas in prior off seasons, there's already been a flurry of moves.
Yeah, it was weird because I thought in my mind, I think the baseball world thought, okay, once Ohtani makes his decision, everything else is going to fall. Because that's normal, right? The big fish finds a home and then everything else follows, right? Because they dictate the market. Like, okay, you're going to get Blake Snell. Like, well, Ohtani got 700 million. I think I'm worth 400 million or whatever. You got JD Martinez or whoever thinks they're the best DH possible aside from Ohtani. I think I'm worth 300 million myself. So I think we all expected Ohtani to be the first big name to go. But what we didn't expect is that things would stagnate really afterward because, yeah, there's been some moves made. Obviously, we already said Yamamoto. But Blake Snell is still available. JD Martinez, what's his name? Jorge Soler. There are still some large names that are out there. Marcus Stroman's another one. You know, I don't at this point, I don't know if Trevor Bauer is going to get a contract, but his name's out there. I was wondering if he's kind of been blacklisted by baseball. Who knows?
No, I think they're already starting. I believe he's going to sign with a low tier team, get to a really good first half of the season, get traded to a playoff contender. I
You
think
think he's going to get a prove it deal? You don't think it's going to be, this command is going to be making money? It's going to be, hey, we'll throw you a bone kind of thing?
no, because I think he won the lawsuit against the Dodgers, and he's getting paid. I know he's going to want more, but he will have to have that prove it contract. But at least he has that money from the Dodgers to fall back on.
Okay, well, since we're on the topic of Mr. B, do you want him as an Angel?
Uh, I have to say yes and no. I think no for the bad media he would get, and I guarantee you, he goes to another team, with a better market. I'm pretty sure he wouldn't get chastised as much, but because of Angels and their history, yes, I wouldn't want him here for that, and I wouldn't want him here for his shenanigans and attitude and special treatment. However, yes, for his ability, and yes, because I hate to say it, but he'd actually become a leader.
You would think, but I mean, he doesn't have a lot of people who talk about his leadership. When you hear the name Trevor Bauer, there isn't exactly a long list of people who come out in support of his leadership. I mean, think about his videos as a Dodger, right? When he was doing his little vlogs, he never really had people around him. You never really had people coming up and talking to him. Because I
Yeah.
mean, think about it when the Angels do those stupid little TikToks, like, "Hey, what's your coffee order? Hey, touch my hand and I'll give you." lit from my pocket. You know what I mean? Those stupid little fist bump things. Anyway, when they do these TikTok videos, a lot of those guys are like in pairs always, right?
Mhm.
Unless they're like running to get something. Like sometimes you'll see Trout kind of do like a little jog to get like some batting gloves or something. So with that being said, like whenever the Dodgers did that kind of stuff, or like Trevor Bauer would do his little vlogs, he was never really around people. There's a lot of guys, we hear a lot about Mike Trout, like his leadership or whatever, and he's really not outspoken. But everybody talks an awful lot about how good of a teammate he is. You don't have to go very far to hear people talk about how good of a teammate Trout is. Maybe he's not a vocal leader, but not everybody wants that. Some people just kind of want you to lead by example, some people don't. So we really don't know the extent of leadership Trevor Bauer would bring to a locker room. Is there a chance that it's positive? Maybe. But this team doesn't need a maybe. This team is in desperate need of a leader. Look no farther than the fact that an aging Mike Moustakas came out of literally flipping nowhere last year and got a leadership role. That shouldn't happen. I know that Mike Moustakas is a World Series champion. On paper, yes, he is what you would look for in a leader. But the guy was here for like 3 days, and they're like, "You're a leader." It's like working at Burger King. You've been there for 3 days, and like you're the manager. You're like, okay.
Yeah, or it's like you're filled at a McDonald's with a bunch of teenagers, and you have a 36-year-old walk in there, and you're all, oh, I gotta listen to that dude. He's in charge.
Yeah,
Clinton.
exactly. Or it's like a guy named Russell Wilson getting traded and getting a contract before he ever played for that team. Hey, that backfired for the Broncos. Hopefully it backfires for the Dodgers with Glass now. I'm
Yeah,
just saying, you don't sign somebody who's never thrown a pitch or a football or shot a basketball for your team. If they've never done anything for you, why would you pay them?
yeah. I mean, it's a tremendous risk. And there's a lot of I mean, just ask the Angels with Rendon and others that we've gone over in our collective misery of free agent signings in the Artie Moreno era. Um, there's just been a lot of just bad moves, man. And the thing is, I don't know if you've seen it, Fernando. I'm pretty sure you have, but they've shown on X that I've seen, and I think you've posted as well, is the Angels are in on a lot of players. And under the Perry Manassian way that we've been accustomed to, usually Perry Manassian will throw a curveball or you don't see it coming. When they make a move or they make a trade, it's just out of nowhere. And this offseason's different. He's under the Epler kind of status where Epler will always be the first to let everybody know we're in on this guy, we're in on that guy. Perry's doing that. Is that a bad sign or is that a good sign in your opinion?
Okay, here's where I am on it. I don't think that it's Perry doing it. I don't think the Angels are in on about half these guys. I think the Angels are the team that these guys are kind of throwing out there. Like, hey, people know that they lost Ohtani. They want to spend money, right? Whether it's true or not. Maybe they're just throwing that out there to, get some steam for their client, raise the price a
Yeah,
little bit.
yeah. Oh, okay. So bumping up the price. So in your opinion, you're thinking that this is all like just because the Angels aren't denying either, though. They're not sitting out there like, hey, we're not in on this guy, we're not in that guy. I
Yeah,
mean,
but Corey hasn't. I mean, he hasn't had a lot of interviews this offseason. And the ones he has had, he's not out there like saying, like, oh, yeah, we're looking into this. He's given the cliche, oh, we're looking into everyone. Because, I mean, think about it. They asked him, I think it was Sam Blum asked him why they let Ohtani get away or whatever. And he was just saying, like, oh, well, I'm not in the position to talk about that kind of stuff. I told you guys that from the beginning. Like, I feel like that's the one time you got to say something, right? I see nothing wrong with him being like, you know what? I talked with Artie Moreno. Artie Moreno had a hard cap. We weren't willing to go over $500 million. Okay, like if they were to say that, it's way less than 700 million. And we're like, hey, that's a lot of money, but that sounds a lot better than 700 million. And at least at that point, you knew what the plan was, right?
mhm.
Hey, this organization took this seriously. Here's what we pitched him. He wasn't interested. He made it very clear that he wanted to go to the Dodgers. You know what? There's valor in that. A lot of the comments in that YouTube video I made were, half of them were supporting what I said, and the other half were Dodger fans saying, oh, cry, baby, cry. You guys would have said the same thing if he stayed with you guys. And I mean, to that, you and I can both say BS. We've been having a show for 3 years. It's on record multiple times from not only you and I, but from many people on our staff under our umbrella that we were okay with Ohtani walking away. I mean, honestly, you and I both said it's better if he leaves, right? Because this team is more than one player away,
Mhm.
especially at $700 million. But it would have been nice to know what exactly the organization had planned if they A, kept him, and B, okay, so they kept him. What was the amount of money that you guys were willing to spend? How much of that was deferred? And then what would have been the plan going forward? Would it have been like, hey, we're still going to tank for a year or two, and hopefully that year 3 and 4 we succeed? That would have been really interesting to hear.
Yeah, I mean, and all we got was lip service, or speculation. We got rumors or people saying, okay, there's several reports by, guys with blue checks that didn't have to pay for him saying, hey, Artie didn't want to treat this like a credit card where it's, a little up front, all at the back, had all this interest and whatnot. And then you had others like his agent coming out saying, well, the Angels, we gave them every opportunity and we even gave them a discount at times, when in negotiations, and they never really stepped up. They never really did this. And that's more believable than some of the other lip service we've heard from the organization or for people that are representing the organization. The hey guys, everything's grass is greener on the other side. And I think what everyone, the haters that you mentioned on your video and on mine, that did not listen to or ignore was the fact that, yes, like you said, for the last couple of years, me and you have been saying we need to move this guy. We need to move this guy. We need to get as much as we can for him. Because, like you said, one Ohtani is not going to win us a World Series, not even get us to the playoffs, as good as he is. And we needed support. We needed a better nucleus of players coming in. We needed to hang our hat on. This prospect is the Ohtani prospect, and this guy too, and this guy, and maybe 4 out of the 5 might make it, maybe 3 out of the 5. Can we have something to build for the future? And the fact that all that pain from the Dodgers and from us losing him and the lip service and the organization was bad enough. But the fact that we walked away with zero is something that I think a lot of the haters aren't grasping yet.
Yeah, and the other thing that I do want to bring up, and I brought up in my video, is the fact like maybe Ohtani was the team player that we thought he was. And I'm not going to go as far to call him a locker room cancer, although there was some articles that were released by some sources in the clubhouse that wanted to remain anonymous that the team was just 25 dudes and Ohtani. He was a one-man show, and it was always about him. So maybe Ohtani was more of a cancer than we thought. And we don't know. And we never will know. Maybe that's something that we can ask some of our friends in the clubhouse and the organization. Like, hey, hey, hush, hush. Was he kind of a dick? Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. We don't know. He was great publicly. He's great to the fans. And nobody really has anything bad to say about him. And really, he's entitled to be like that if that's what he wants, right? There's nothing inherently wrong with wanting to be the guy, right? I mean, Bryce Harper's the guy in that godforsaken city, Philadelphia, and everybody's fine with that. A lot of teams in many sports have the guy. Patrick Mahomes is the guy in Kansas City. You know what I mean? So it happens all the time. It's actually going to be really interesting to see what happens in New York now with Aaron Judge, who's the guy, but now they have Juan Soto. And I mean, who's better? I think Juan Soto is better than Aaron Judge overall. So what I'm saying here, long story short, I guess long story long, is maybe more of this stuff's going to develop over the years. Maybe it's going to be after he retires. Maybe it's going to be good that Ohtani's gone because guys like Sandoval, Detmers will actually get a pitch the day that they're supposed to. It's not going to be, hey, Todd, you're going Tuesday. Actually, Shohei's going on Tuesday. Now, Todd, you're going Thursday. And now you're like, oh, great. Well, I just ate my Fruity Pebbles in my Lucky Underwear the night before because that's what I do. That's what gets me ready for a start. Hey, I don't have sex 3 days before I pitch because it's bad luck. You know what I mean? You know how baseball players are. They're superstitious. And now all that's messed up.
Yeah, I mean that's what's going to be interesting. It would have been interesting to see how Ron Washington would have treated that, because Phil Nevin was a anything goes, players player, players coach. So it's going to be interesting to see too, like if we're seeing the lineups, be more consistent. Where would what would that have happened if Otani's like, look, I need to get because look, that's the thing too that a lot of people don't bring up. You brought up the pitching aspect. Remember, Ohtani was one that was going out there like, hey, I got to get as many bats as I can, and he was advocating to lead off, play and bat number two all the time, and he got his wish. Like he was batting two a lot. So, I mean, me and you have talked. He's a traditional 3-4 in any kind of like real lineup, but either analytics or his own, choice, he had to pitch every 6 days. He conveniently missed starts in humidity, and he batted second all the time to get most at bats. It didn't matter that the matchups weren't good on paper. No, he had to bat second.
And the last thing I want to say about this, because I am tired about watching Ohtani, and I know we've kind of talked about doing a segment where we kind of like spy on our ex Ohtani, right? I mean, we're gonna do it. Let's be honest, we're all gonna do it. So we'll still cover him as a player for obvious reasons, right? He was a very large part of our organization.
Correct.
But the last thing I kind of want to say on this is all these Dodger fans right now are currently talking about like, oh man, we have a scary 1 through 5. Guys, be careful because we had that quote unquote scary 1 through 5, and it really wasn't that scary. Right? I mean, you do have Mookie Betts, and Mookie Betts, okay, he's a great hitter, but he's also a 275-ish hitter lately.
When he was right, because remember, he played half the season at 230.
There you go. You have Freddie Freeman, and Freddie Freeman is still good in my opinion, but he's also what, 33?
34
Father
now.
time's
Yeah.
undefeated. The window's closing. And then you have Ohtani who's going to bat third. And who knows what Ohtani is going to be post surgery. Remember, 2019 Ohtani, which was his first year after going under the knife, he did well. But 2020 Ohtani looked like he was in the plot of Space Jam. He just couldn't, lost his talent. Guy was horrible. I mean, there's a handful of us who could bat 211. Okay, maybe not. I'm exaggerating, obviously. But what I'm saying is, are the Dodgers going to get the 2019 Ohtani or the 2020 Ohtani? We don't know. For their sake, and I mean, for the sake of baseball, I mean, yeah, hey, you probably, hey, I can't wait for Ohtani to have a great normal season, regular season, get the Dodgers to the playoffs so they can choke, how it's supposed to. Cleanup is supposed to be Will Smith. And then batting fifth is supposed to be Max Muncy. I mean, Will Smith, average hitter, great. Okay, he's cool.
He's
I'm not.
clutch. I'll give him that. He's clutch.
Yeah, he's clutch. But I mean, do you really see Will Smith as a number 4?
No, I'd
I
say,
could see him as a 5 or 6.
yeah, six would be
Even
super.
as a 3.
Yeah.
Maybe you should put him at 3 and then put Ohtani cleaning up. To be honest, I mean, Ohtani's just hitting this year.
Yeah, Will Smith's got a good eye. Like those first four guys are pretty important to me. I think those guys would be, that would be a good murderers row, but it falls off with Muncy, you said. You got Gavin Lux coming off an injury. He's never really reached his potential. Chris Taylor, another
He's
guy who,
dog water last year.
yeah, and he was, to me, he didn't deserve that contract, even with the year he had prior. So it's,
Who's their third baseman now? It's Muncy, right? No, Muncy's outfielder, right?
yeah, Muncy's in the outfield.
But
Uh,
then you're probably going to have Manny Margot in the outfield, probably right field, and he's probably going to be batting seventh, eighth. I mean, yeah, he's a 240-ish hitter.
to me, they have too much talent. You need role players. You need good young rookies, prove it players. When you have too many stars, it never works out, dude.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll say that for the Dodger show. Or I think you had mentioned maybe a future channel coming, so maybe
Yeah, we're gonna spin off on that unfiltered sports, which we're gonna be talking about every team, any or that comes to mind, a huge sports story. So it's not just gonna be Angels talk at all. Actually, it only will be if the Angels make some killer news. throw it over there too. But for the most part, it's going to be talking about baseball, football, soccer, hockey, whatever is in the news.
I can't wait to finally be able to talk a little bit about like the Coyotes and just hockey in general. But okay, so so last two things, and so I mean, and these are going to be some topics here that we can get really into. So I want to dive into where you think the Angels are this offseason. Obviously, it's been very uneventful. The biggest name that the Angels have been linked with is what's his name? Zach Plesac. There's a lot of sources out there like, oh, the Angels have signed him. That has not officially happened yet. It's been rumored, but as of this minute that we are recording, it's not official yet. We were getting tagged left and right, and people were sending it to the Halos in the Infield Instagram. Let me just tell you guys something, okay? Because Todd's the one who handles the messages. But if we're not posting something, guys, it's because it's not news yet. We are not a rumor page. I'm not going to post a rumor unless it's something massive, something like earth shattering. You know, like, oh, Perry Manassian's come out that the Angels are thinking about trading like Mike Trout, and like that was reported by like, you know, big names. Then we'd probably report it. But if it's just he said, she said kind of thing, who cares?
Yeah. I mean, we're not in the rumor business. So yeah, he's absolutely right. If it's news, we're likely one of the first to put it up there, if not the first.
Okay.
So
So with Zach Plesac, you know, arguably being the biggest name we're currently linked to,
mhm.
is this really where we are? I mean, I know there's a lot of pages out there, and you know, some legitimate names. You know, you have the God, who's the short little dude? Ken Rosenthal. I know he was like, oh, the Angels are rumored for like Blake Snell. Do you really think the Angels are truly in on those names? And I don't mean like made a phone call or two. I mean truly in.
No, I mean, I just wish we would stop getting into this stuff. Like I much rather be pleasantly surprised than hear, okay, we're in on this, because all it does is get your hopes up. And then you start thinking unfinished business. Like he's actually back to unfinished business and he's gonna try to reload. It's like again, like we've talked ad nauseum. Give us some sort of I think as Angel fans, we deserve a plan. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? And how long is it going to take for you to get to your plan? And we could be on board. We can actually join hands, Artie. Well, not figuratively, but try to accept you back into the fold and be like, okay, he's trying, legitimately trying, instead of the cash cow that we all saw that was last year, the cash grab, I should say, in Ohtani. It's frustrating to be an Angels fan right now. Until I see one of these big names fall, then we can critique it, then we could see if it's worth it or not. Until it's all lip service.
So you and I have said a couple times that we don't mind this team and organization going through a hard reset. Okay, but with that being said, so let's just say we do get to opening day and there really was no major moves. The major move is a guy like a Zach Plesac, like those kind of guys. We get a couple of other small pieces trickling in here, but at the end of the day, nothing major happens. So with that being said, will you be disappointed that that's the case? There was no move. The biggest signing was that.
Uh yeah, absolutely. I think is we've gotten to a point where we're effed either way. Artie's effed either way. If he goes all out, it's desperation. If he doesn't do anything, it's what the hell are you doing? You know, you're trashing the team. I don't know if there's a comfortable middle to where we can actually, we floated a few names out there, but is that enough? Are we satisfied? Can't because I think all we're looking for is just a team to make it to the playoffs. We're a dog that's got its nuts clipped, and we want to lick our wounds, but we got that cone around our head, and we can't really do anything because we're stuck in between. You know, we're just there right now, and we're obviously yearning for a move, but is it going to be the right move? And then knowing the organization and who's running it, we have zero faith. And I think that's what's so hard on Angel fans right now.
I'm going to be disappointed, not because they didn't get a big name. I'm going to be disappointed because, like, that's the closest thing to a rebuild that the organization's probably willing to go. But I'm going to be disappointed that they didn't go further. Why didn't you get rid of the pieces that we could get rid of? I know a lot of Angels fans are like, no, we need it. So the organization is very split. A lot of them are like, we need to keep a guy like Rengifo. And the other half are like, we need to trade a guy like Rengifo. I'm on the we need to trade a guy like Rengifo train. I like Rengifo. I've seen flashes. But the problem with him is right now his value is high. He's controllable. He can play many positions. That's a guy you need to trade because you can get some pieces back. I'm almost on the same train with a guy like a Canning, but they won't trade him because all we have is lefties and he needs to break it up. Okay, so if you can't trade a guy like Canning, who can you trade? Maybe you look at either trading Sandoval or you look at trading a guy like Detmers. And I know that's sacrilegious to a lot of Angels fans because these are guys we can build a team around. Yes, but Andrew, who you guys know is part of our staff, but he's a Padres fan, so he's very unbiased, said you guys can get 2 or 3 very, very good pieces for either of those guys. And 2 or 3 pieces could help this organization more long term than Sandoval and Detmers, because those guys have what, about 4 years of control left. If we get one of these guys who's maybe in AA, AAA, maybe it's another outfielder, because Ward is also going to be a free agent, I believe, in about 2 years, because he got drafted in 2015.
Mhm.
So if my math is correct, it is almost midnight here. I believe that, yeah, he's got about 2 years left. So who's going to replace Ward? Because right now, we really don't even have someone in right field. It's probably Adele.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you need to start looking for that. So maybe you can get 2 or 3 replacements. Because remember, the Angels drafted 20 starting pitchers in 2020. They signed 19 of them. I believe about 16 of them are still in the organization. Silseth, at some point, needs to get a full go. So maybe you trade Sandoval or Demers and you give the ball to Silseth. He's also a guy who's shown a lot of potential, and he breaks up all the lefties.
Yeah, I mean that we haven't had a strong righty other than Ohtani, so that yeah, that's going to be a step up for the guys we do have currently on staff, and then if we could bring in another pitcher or two, because I'm on record of saying a Blake Snell, Marcus Stroman combo would definitely help this team out a lot. But then again, when we lost Kai Bush, I have to bring this up. Our propaganda man, uh was it Roger Lodge, came out and when someone criticized the Angels moves and losing the catcher and then losing Kai Bush, and he was like, well, we already have enough lefties, and when Kai Bush had a 6 ERA this year, he didn't even pitch that much. Idiot. He didn't pitch that much because he was injured. And he hasn't, and he blew through AA his first year, got into AAA, and did fairly well last year up until the offseason injury. So that just goes to show you the propagandists who will try to spin anything in a right way. Kai Bush shouldn't have been given up on. Cuero shouldn't have been given up on. But people say,
Those
well,
are 2 pieces that we need right now.
yeah,
We
we
could
could have.
have really benefited from, because Cuero arguably would have been your backup catcher.
Yeah,
You
he would have already been
Francisco
playing.
Mejia, you got Francisco Mejia, and he's kind of, he got his spring training invite. I think he might have a chance. And actually, I'll give a shout out here to the Super Halo Bros. They did this whole episode where they talked about people who, the organization can move on from. And, we might actually get some return for it. They brought up the name Matt Dice, and we've kind of banged that drum a little bit too. He's out of options. That's definitely a piece that you should consider moving. He can play first base, he can play third base, he can play catcher. There's got to be some value in that for somebody. Maybe you give the keys to a guy like Francisco Mejia because he's at least good defensively. So with that being said, Cuero would have probably been your backup, and then you really wouldn't have needed Thice.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing to think about too. Let's just say we don't trade Cuero, and you say, okay, you know what? We don't have a DH right now. They don't get JD Martinez. They don't get another viable DH. I mean, you could throw maybe Mustakis in there every now and then, if you re-sign him. But let's just say, even with Mustakis there, and you could fit, you're likely going to have to play him at third base at some point because Rendon's going to get hurt 7 times a year. So with Mustakis at third,
Only 7.
yeah, you could have put Ohapi at DH, Cuero behind the plate, and then when you want to give Cuero a day off, Ohapi at catcher and Cuero at DH, because all signs were pointing to Cuero being a good hitter, and likely we're going to see him start over there in Chicago.
I'll promise you this. Mark my words, bookmark this. That is going to go down as one of the worst trades in franchise history. And if you think I'm an idiot, it already is.
Well, yeah, I mean, look,
Even if those guys never make it to the show, it's already one of the worst trades in franchise history.
I agree. Look, if Cuero can just be not even an all-star, but an everyday catcher for the White Sox,
Hey, Max Stassi guy.
yeah, and if Kai Bush can at least hit number 3 in the rotation, I think three's high, but let's just say he's even a 4 and a consistent 4. My God, dude, did we take a fat L in that trade or what?
Well, yeah, for what? 8 stars to Giolito? I
Yeah,
watched in Texas. I booed him so loud my girlfriend was like scared. It's like, oh my God.
and last thing on this,
Uh,
I'm really intrigued on what Giolito does with the Boston Red Sox. I
I
really am.
he got such a big contract. It was like 2 years, like 80 million or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, he got a fat payday from them, so we'll see.
Which is bonkers to me.
Yeah, I don't get that.
Crazy.
It's like, oh, you gave up the most home runs in the league this year? Fat contract.
Like 2 years, 10 million. I would have been like, okay, 5 a year. All right. He was a big name. I mean,
Yeah.
the Dark Knight, Matt Harvey got like 9 million from the Angels in like 2019. The cocaine captain himself,
Exactly.
the cocaine cowboy.
And speaking of, since you pulled up Matt Harvey, Batman, let's pick up another movie character in Simba.
There you
And
go. That's a great transition.
there you go. The number 2 just above your head right there, shining like the halo.
Oh,
Uh,
one way.
yeah, the jersey just
Yes.
above his head. You're being a bad weatherman right now. You're just
Because I'm not a mid 40 like a woman.
there you go. You need some.
Has like a mom blog. Like, yeah, I feel like that's like really how you make it as a weather person.
Yeah. Plus, you need to change your last name to Stormy or Hale or something like that.
Are we still talking about anchoring for the weather?
Maybe.
We
Maybe.
were
Yeah.
talking about a lot more money. We were talking about what I thought we were talking about.
We'll save that for another show.
So,
Um,
save it for the after hours show.
yeah, exactly. But let's get on Simba here because Simba just retired officially from Major League Baseball. And I know he was one of your favorite players, and he
My
was
all-time favorite angel.
yeah, all-time favorite Angel, and also a huge fan favorite here in Anaheim slash Los Angeles. But uh Simba really, he had some real good ups and he had a few downs. But for the most part, I would say that trade was actually won by the Angels.
That was definitely one of Billy Epler's best trades. Arguably one of the best trades of this millennium. One of, not the best. Um, you traded Sean Newcomb, who hasn't really amounted to much in his major league career. I believe he just signed a minor league contract with the Oakland A's. Tells you a lot right there. Who else did he give up? We gave up Eric Ibar, and Eric Ibar did not have a good year with the Braves. And I forgot who the third piece was. But I think combined, they were like 3 wins above replacement for the Braves. And Andrelton Simmons was one of the best defensive shortstops as an Angel. He was a great bat for the Angels. A lot of people forget about how great of a hitter he truly was in 2017, 2018. And, he was a big piece of that 2019 team, too. He had a lot of injuries. He was very plagued by injuries, very weak ankles from every indication we had. I remember him always trying to leg out a single, try to beat a throw from the shortstop. He'd always hyperextend his ankle and twist. I think it happened like 2 or 3 times. There was a time where he was walking down the staircase to get into the dugout and he slipped and fell. And that's like another really big injury I think about all the time. If we would have seen a healthy Andrelton Simmons throughout his entire Angels career, I think he's the big difference on a lot of those teams.
Yeah,
In 2017, Mike Trout was injured, but Andrelton Simmons was also injured, and Simmons was having a beast of a year in 2017.
there was a time where he was shuffled around by Soch, either from the leadoff spot to like a number 7 spot. Hell, even I seen him bat cleanup one time.
I remember him batting cleanup a handful of times. Yeah, he was a great leadoff hitter. Honestly, aside from Yunel Escobar, who's another one of my favorite players, um, Andrelton Simmons was the elite leadoff guy after Cole Calhoun kind of fell off a little bit.
Yeah, the only thing that the Simmons would bother me sometimes, it's like sometimes he'd forget how to be patient. So he'd be over aggressive and strike out a lot. But there'd be times when he would just get into a groove and settle in and make pitchers pitch to him. And because of the guys that they had around him with Pujols and Trout and other guys, uh, he would get some favorable pitches and he would either work that into walks or he'd rip doubles. I mean, he was a king at ripping them down the line, or putting a well-placed flare into the outfield and stretching a single into a double. Um, there was a times where he was hitting over 300, 345 for a month, carrying the team. When everyone was worried about Trout and others, Simmons was over there knocking in all the RBIs. And he made some fantastic plays at shortstop. Very underrated, I think, league wide. But I think here in Anaheim, the fans knew what they had and appreciated his effort and his personality.
I, you know, I'm gonna. I normally don't try to prove you wrong often, but Simmons being my all-time favorite Angel, I have to. You take a look when you get 5 minutes. If maybe you take a little longer on the toilet than normal. Go on, go on and look at his batting percentage. His batting stats. He had one of the lowest strikeout rates as an Angel in those 7 years in the league. Like he didn't strike out often. I want to say his strikeout rate was one of the lowest. He grounded into a lot of ground outs, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's the argument. But he didn't strike out very often. He was one of the better guys in the league about not striking out. And one of the biggest things I remember in 2017 was being pissed off that Mike Trout got into the All-Star game. Not because Trout didn't deserve it, but that was the year that Trout hurt himself sliding in. I believe it was second base, and now he wore that oven mitt afterward. I think it was in Houston, right, that he got hurt. He got voted in by the fans, but he couldn't play that year. He was actually on the 66ers during the All-Star break. I'm sure you remember that.
Mm-hmm.
So the Angels technically had an All-Star game representative that year in Mike Trout, but Trout didn't show up because he was rehabbing in San Bernardino. So the Angels didn't have a player on the field represent them that year. And Major League Baseball really dropped the ball that year because it really should have been Andrelton Simmons.
Yeah, he did deserve it.
All those stats for that year.
And I'll tell you one thing that I still feel bad to this day, and I just wish it was done better by the organization. And granted, a lot of the fans took shots at other fans because they were too critical on him. I, for one, was one of those because all I was hearing from the organization was, well, he went home. He didn't want to play anymore. And it was cited COVID and that he just, decided to opt out. And there was really nothing else. So the number one thing that all of us said here on the network, or at least I did and a few others, was, man, he quit on the team. What a bastard.
Yeah, because there was 5 games left.
Yeah, and it was like at the most, like for that COVID shit season, the ring pop season, it would have been an opportunity for the Angels to break that streak. And then lo and behold, I don't think it's a coincidence that Simmons leaves and the team tanks the last 5 to 6 games.
Yeah, he was a large part of that team and really this organization. But I mean, the Angels didn't bring him back the next year, and maybe it ended up being a good move because he wasn't very good with the Twins. He wasn't very good with the Cubs. And then he went over to Dubai and, he decided to hang him up. He's no longer playing Major League Baseball, which is a shame because he was just a lot of fun to watch. So I pulled up those 2017 stats. So he played 158 games that year. So, I mean, actually, I was wrong. I thought that was the year he got hurt. He played almost all of them. In 2018, he only played 146. And in 2019, he played 103. So clearly, those were the years where he had more injuries. And 2016, which was his first year, he only played 124 games. Okay, so in 647 plate appearances, he got 164 hits. He hit 14 homers, 69 RBIs, 19 stolen bases, which I don't remember him stealing that many stolen bases, but clearly he did. That was the most stolen bases he ever had in his career. He batted 278 and had an on-base percentage of 331. That's not bad.
It's not, because considering what,
He
well,
only struck out 67 times
well, I stand
in
corrected.
647 at bats.
I stand corrected because my thing was when he was in Atlanta, he was labeled as a defensive guy with some speed, not
Yeah,
much on the bat, didn't make much contact, and he's going to be, they Atlanta really thought they got the move in that one
better end of
because
that deal.
yeah, because Ibar, yes, he was falling off a little bit, but he was still that leader. He was still that spark plug. Newcomb was tearing it up for the Angels. Angel fans, I remember crying about Newcomb being traded because they're like, how could you give up a guy for Simmons is going to be a bust and we don't like him here at shortstop. We already had Ibar and sometimes when you have a player for 5 years or more, it's hard to let go of that guy and you don't see the big picture. Obviously, Epler saw the big picture. They put faith in Simmons, and Simmons put faith in himself, and he performed way better than any of us ever expected. And it's easy to see why the Angels won that trade.
Yeah, absolutely. They clearly won. And the last thing I have to say before we close out, at least out of my end, that 67 strikeouts in 2017, a career high. So that tells you something right there. That's the most he ever struck out in a single season.
Yeah. I think I was getting my stats mixed up with the groundouts because I remember
Yeah,
he
his granddads were crazy. That's for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah, he did swing first pitch a lot, but it sometimes worked because he could get into a groove where he'd find holes and get singles. So he was a singles machine at times, and then he'd give you an occasional pop or two, and it would lift the team's spirits. So yeah, all good things do come to an end in sports. Like you said, Father Time is undefeated, and you can't have him forever. But we were happy to have him here in Anaheim for the years that we had him.
Absolutely. Yeah, he was an absolute honor to watch, and there's no way in hell he's watching this, but he's welcome on the show anytime.
Well, I don't know where he currently stands, but I'm pretty sure we'll find him on social media, hopefully. So yeah, if you can get a hold of him, I'd love to talk to him as well. But any more on this week besides Happy New Year and all that?
No, no, happy New Year's to the Halo fam and look forward to getting back in the groove of things and hopefully we have some announcements coming up for some for an event in the middle of February. We'll talk about with the audience and
Yeah, we're getting close to that. I just talked to Homeboy about the field, so he's supposed to hear something tomorrow. And then as far as our weekly shows, there's just not much to talk about. You know what I mean? Like we're gonna be ramped up for the season. Trust me. There's a whole bunch of content we're gonna be doing. The only thing I apologize for is dropping. We had a lot of stuff going on this winter so far, to where we didn't do those retrospectives and maybe player profiles. But for the most part, we got a lot of content coming. For the regular season. So I'm pretty.
narrative, as I promise.
Yes, exactly. So, um, other than that, that's all I got.
That's all I've got as well.
All right. So for Halos in the Infield, this is Todd Fox along with,
The Lone Star Halo.
and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Catch you on the flip.